My name is Russell Bowers, and I'm with CBC Radio. Do we have any CBC Radio listeners here tonight? Wow. I'm astonished because I just came here about 3 months ago. And prior to coming back to Prince George, some of you might remember I was the host in Prince Rupert for about 5 years, from 2003 to 2008. And I spent 6 years doing early morning weekend radio for CBC Radio in Alberta. I'm not used to talking to this many people. So you'll have to forgive the nerves early on here this evening. But the other thing I've noticed about you lovely folks here this evening is that you're all quite young. You look lovely. Because if you believe a lot of the CBC research on audience statistics and so forth, you're all supposed to be 106. So it's so nice to see so many young people out this evening. And we're going to be discussing hopefully some issues that are of importance to you here in Prince George. And if we haven't thought of it already, as I mentioned, there's going to be some opportunities later this evening for you to come up and ask a question. So you can make your way, if you get some time for this evening or at intermission, pick up one of the paper ballots at the back of the room by the aquascape sign. There's some pens back there as well. And if there's a question that's crossed your mind, then by all means, write it down, let us know what it is, and pass it along to some of my friends who are here this evening, and we'll try and get you up at some point this evening. So let me just quickly bring your attention to some of the other folks who work with me at CBC Radio and do their utmost day in and day out to make sure that their stupid host knows what to say. And I'll start with a gentleman who has been our newsreader for a long time. He's our cub reporter these days. This is what we like to call him. But tonight he is got even more skills, in addition to the fact that he's also the official anthem singer for the Prince George Cougars. This is the moment where everybody kind of goes, oh, that's what he looks like. And of course, you're probably saying the same thing about me, some of you, and you're thinking, I thought he'd be smaller or less hairy. Another gentleman who was in the host chair before I got here, but he has capably taken on the producing roles of our show and has certainly done a lot of work in putting together this evening. And he's also one of the gentlemen who's going to be making his way around the room to pick up questions, and he set up our webcast tonight. I don't think there's anything this man doesn't know how to do, but he's our producer. He is Andrew Curiata. Also, one of our APs, associate producers, who helps line up guests for us, and he'll be making his way around the room as well, so you can flag him down. Sham Samir, if you'd stand. And one of our interns who's been working with us over the last few weeks has been graciously conned into coming here tonight and helping us out as well. She's going to be helping with the timekeeping this evening. It's Jordan Tucker. Thank you, Jordan. And also, to help start things off tonight, I'd like to acknowledge the fact that we are on the traditional territory of the Lheidli T'enneh First Nation. And we certainly appreciate being hosted here this evening, and we'll be hearing from one of the members, a representative of the Lheidli T'enneh, a little bit later on this evening. And of course, our thanks to the Prince George Public Library for hosting this event tonight and providing this space for us. And a couple of things that we want to do just in the way of some housekeeping, because as Andrea has subtly let me know, we just want to make sure that everyone is safe in the room. We also want to know that you can safely get out of here at any point. So obviously there's the doors back there to which most of you came in. There's also a exit sign and door over here. So if anything untoward should happen this evening, please make your way towards one of these exits. Oh, and there's one back over here as well. For the VIPs. This is where we'll be leaving. You lot. Also tonight, you probably have one of these with you at some point, a smartphone. So if you would mind taking a moment right now, if you would take your smartphone, turn it on, turn the ringer up as loud as possible, because certainly there's no reason for us to not stop the debate and let you take your phone call. However, If you want to be polite about it, you can certainly set it to silent or vibrate. And we certainly do encourage you to tweet, to put up some Facebook posts and so forth, make any sort of comments you want. And you can follow Daybreak, of course, on Twitter at Daybreak North. And we're also Daybreak North on Facebook. All right, everybody ready to debate? I'm not entirely sold on that. So I'm going to possibly, okay, so that was a pretty good start, you know? That was the sort of applause you'd expect to get if you had to go to, I don't know, your next door neighbor's nephew's piano recital. They're not very good, but you want to be encouraging. That was the kind of applause I just got there. So let's step that up a little bit. Let's say that you've come to the Prince George Public Library and you've found a book you've been looking for a long time. What kind of applause should that be? That's good. That's pretty good. I think we can go up one step further, though. I think we can get it up a little higher, okay? So we've come to the end of the debate. We've heard excellent arguments from both our candidates. And just as things are coming to a close, Peter Mansbridge walks in the room and offers to take us all for drinks. And if you read any of the Sun newspapers, apparently he can afford it. So, all right, we're going to get our candidates to their respective podium. So I will start with a brief introduction to each of these candidates and invite them to the podium. And if you would graciously welcome them as they come up. First of all, Lynn Hall is finishing off his first term as a city councilor in Prince George. And before that, he was the chair and vice chair of the board for School District 57. He's also an active coach and volunteer, and he's on the board for a number of organizations in the city. Please welcome Lynn Hall. Don Zurowski served as a city councilor for 9 years, and currently he's the chair of the BC Passenger Transportation Board, director of the Prince George Airport Authority, and past general manager of Community Futures Development Corporation. Would you please welcome Don Zurowski? Now, it should be said that both men are experienced politicians in the city. They've got ideas on how to develop Prince George over the next 4 years and beyond, and that's what we're going to hear from them tonight as we move along. Some housekeeping for you folks as well, in addition to the smartphones and so forth. We want to ask that when you're applauding, as you just did, it's done in a respectful and exuberant manner, so that's fantastic. We don't want people yelling out comments and things like that, or otherwise interrupting proceedings. And as I said, there are opportunities for you to ask some questions. We'll make those available as the night progresses. We also have some invited guests who will be getting up and asking questions as the night progresses as well. We'll be starting things off with opening statements, and each candidate will have 2 minutes to outline their campaign and ideas for their campaign. And gentlemen, as you're speaking, our colleague Jordan Tucker will be giving you notices when you've got a minute left and when you've got 20 seconds left. If you happen to go over time, I will come over there. Don't make me. So we will start things off. We had a coin toss before the event tonight to determine who would speak first, and it will go in reverse order for closing statements tonight. So opening remarks will come from Lynn Hall.
Thank you very much. How's that, Will? Good enough? Perfect. Well, this is great. I'm so thrilled to see so many people here, and I think, Dawn, this is the reason you and I got into this, is to create this kind of buzz in the community. So thank you very much, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for attending, and thanks to CBC and the library for hosting the event. Prince George, 100 years and beyond. That was what Dawn and I were given when we were asked to prepare a brief statement and talk a little bit about what we'd like to see happen. Over the next 4 years, it is our responsibility as a council to lay the foundation for the future of our city. In order to do that, we need to strengthen our economic base and strengthen our relationships and connections with staff and community partners such as our educational community, First Nations, our youth, just to name a few. We need to rebuild our position as BC's Northern Capital. We need strong leadership from the Mayor and Council. My intent is to restructure Council so we can utilize each councillor's strengths, develop a structure where there are councillor liaison positions to our community partners, create a mayor's roundtable that will include all city stakeholders, such as seniors groups, educational partners, arts groups, VLA enhancement group, DBIA, Chamber of Commerce, IPG, RCMP, firefighters. You get a sense of where I'm going. It's a reconnection to the community. We as a council will provide effective individual and collective leadership. This is the foundation that will strengthen our economic base and strengthen our relationship with our partners. This will result in retaining our youth workers, providing a positive atmosphere for industry and manufacturing development, and a great place to live. We need to be community-minded and business-friendly. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the opportunity this evening, and I look forward to the questions that come before us. Thank you.
Councillor Lindholm. All right, I'll now hand the microphone over to our other candidate in the race, Don Zurowski. Don.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for investing your evening in becoming more informed. Thank you for CBC for organizing the evening, and the library for providing a great venue, although the entrance not so good. I'm running basically on 3 pillars. The first one is let's get Prince George growing. This is a high energy community with high expectations, with a road network that will support 100,000 people, and we need to get to 100,000 people. The under 80,000 that we've been stuck at for many years is becoming a frustrated set of individuals that have tax and utility rate fatigue, and they'd like to share the cost of operating this great community with more people. In the last, we have great amenities in this community, which are extremely desirable. Our post-secondary education offerings are superb. UNDC and CNC could both use more full-time equivalent students. K-12 is down 40% since 1992. We need to get Prince George growing again. It's essential for us to be the Northern Capital that we can be. Another essential pillar of mine is needs before wants. We need to focus on the community needs, maintaining our existing infrastructure, city facilities and amenities before we build new facilities within this community. It's critical to maintain our existing infrastructure. My advice to you would not be to buy a new boat if you can't afford to put a new roof in your house. And as your mayor, I won't do that with your money either. We won't be taking on new boats unless we can maintain our existing infrastructure. And finally, civic pride. In my view, civic pride has gone down in the last few years, and it's because of annoyances. It's annoying to the community that your roads haven't been as maintained as they might be, that your snow removal hasn't been up to par, and these sort of things are not attractors. They're not the essential ingredients attracting additional residents to this community. Time up?
Yep.
Thank you very much.
So thank you to both candidates for your opening statements. And again, at the end of the evening, they'll be given a minute to sum up their evening here. Now, as I mentioned, we have some invited guests who will be asking questions this evening. And I also want to take a moment to welcome our colleagues and fellow members of the broadcast and other print media that are here tonight. I want to thank the representatives from 250 News are here tonight. And I also want to thank members of the Prince George Citizen who are here tonight as well. I don't know if I've missed anyone, but I'll apologize. Prince George Free Press is here as well. Thank you very much. Thank you guys for coming. And some of you might be wondering, of course, we are recording this event tonight in addition to live streaming it. So some of you might be wondering when some of these comments will be on the radio. Well, what I can do I get some of it tomorrow morning between 7:30 and 8 o'clock on your radio. We're going to go through a number of different topics here this evening. In this first half, we will take a break in about, we'll call it about 20 minutes time, 25 minutes time. I'll call upon our first invited questioner. And this is a question from the community. And I want to welcome up to this microphone right here, Mr. Bill Quinn from the Prince George Chamber of Commerce. And Bill, your questions for the candidates, please.
Thanks, Russell. So, Don and Lynn. Recently, the Prince George Chamber, we did a survey of our members, and regarding the importance issue, what are the importance issues for businesses? Coming far ahead from the other responses was a concern about two related business issues: recruitment and retention of skilled labor, and perception and profile of Prince George from those outside the community. Now, obviously, these issues are very directly linked, as businesses often have a hard time getting people to move to our community. So if you could outline your ideas for addressing these important business issues, and I'd be really curious to see what kind of out-of-the-box thinking you guys got going on this too.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks.
Mr. Zurowski, I'll ask you to start the responses. We'll time each of these questions out for about 5 minutes. And Jordan's also going to keep me on track there as well. If we finish in less than 5, that's fine, but 5 minutes maximum on this. But Mr. Zurowski.
Well, one of the things, of course, which is always on the radar screen is moderate taxation. A well-maintained community, but we will not be serving up any tax shock under my watch if my fellow colleagues are willing to be financially conservative. The other point that I think is very important is Prince George needs to go back to measuring its performance. Prior to 2008, we tracked and measured how long it took us to process a development permit, a standard residential building permit, service at City Hall. Some of those things were best practices at City Hall, and continually looking at best practices. As well as I look forward to putting a billboard outside of the community with a simple statement that Prince George is open for business, and the mayor's phone number on that billboard. Let's get Prince George growing.
Thank you. One of the things that we talk about in council over the last 3 years is the need to create a partnership, Bill, the need to create people that are going to connect with council. So the chamber, IPG, we need to look at that and have a strong relationship with those two organizations. I firmly believe that if we can get somebody here to Prince George to take a look at the amenities, we'll capture them here. And that's been proven. It's been proven when you take a look at our mosque, if you take a look at various people who have come to Prince George but for a specific reason, taking a look at the amenities, and I think one of those is UNBC, our post-secondary education, but not only that, but our K-7 and K-12 programs. I think that's important for us to get out front of and to show people that we have those types of amenities in Prince George. That will capture them. Get them here, show them around, and we've got them. I think when you talk about what we look like as a city, we have come strides upon strides over the last number of years, and the amount of money that we have invested in our roads, not only our potholes, but our paving. We heard loud and clear that that was number one on people's minds, along with snow clearing. We heard that. We reacted to it. We have not put so much money into roads, both in repair and snow plowing, as we've done in the last 3 years. That in itself is an amenity and a real driver for people when they come to Prince George to take a look at what our community has to offer. So it's not just a quick drive to your place of potential business. It's a drive around town. Take a look at what we have. And I think we fall short many times of talking about what a great city this is and what it has to offer. Each one of us in this room has a responsibility to do that. That just doesn't fall on the shoulders of council and IPG or the Chamber of Commerce. It's each one of us. And thank you.
I'll just jump in on that because I want to make sure we hear from Mr. Zurowski too in equal time. But let me just ask a follow-up question on what the chamber is talking about. In Prince George of late, especially through social media on the Facebook site, Hell Yeah, Prince George, there's a certain degree of civic pride that is being focused through that website. In addition to attracting people to come to this city, to set up businesses, to set up lives for themselves, what do you think you would do as mayor to enhance the pride and engagement of the people who are already living here? Mr. Zurowski.
Well, as I partly commented on, we need to deal with the civic annoyances. When we've got things like it doesn't serve any of us proudly to be advertised as the pothole capital or to have a winter of terrible snow removal. That sort of thing doesn't cause you to want to invite others to come and reside in your community. And we get fairly focused on beating ourselves up. And we need to deal with those civic annoyances. We need to deal with the problems in our home before we can thrive as a community. And those are crucial core service type activities that we need to take pride in locally, because as I've got some things I'll say in my closing comments. Thank you.
All right. What we'll do is we'll leave that question there, and we're just going to take a moment to replace Mr. Hall's microphone because we're just getting a little bit of distortion there in the room, so we want to make sure that it's sounding as good as possible. And so while Andrew is taking care of that,
Maybe.
Oh, in the meantime, talk amongst yourselves. Did you have a pleasant drive here this evening? Has anybody actually heard Will sing yet? We were going to get him to. No? If you guys hear Will, not bad. We were thinking about having Will start things off with the anthem tonight, but then I also insisted he do it on roller skates and see if there might be anything untoward that happened, but he wouldn't go for that. So we're in good shape over there now?
We're in decent shape.
All right. All right, so apologies.
Make more jokes.
I have the perfect antidote to knock jokes if you're interested. So as one, ladies and gentlemen, if you would say knock knock.
Knock knock.
It's open. And it's top flight comedy like that you'll hear each and every morning between 6 and 8:30 a.m. on CBC Radio One.
One more joke. Or no more jokes.
All right. How many CBC employees does it take? There we go.
How's that, Will?
We're good.
Better?
I think we've.
No?
Hello.
How's that? Hello, Will. Russell, Bill, Bob.
That sounds nice and clean now. Yep. We'll make adjustments as we go along. All right. So we'll move on now to question number 2. And it's our second community question of the evening. And earlier this year on Daybreak, we ran a special series on the VLA neighborhood in Prince George. And one of the people we heard from during that series was Catherine Kendall. She's a neighborhood development coordinator who's done a lot of work in the VLA neighborhood. And Catherine Kendall, I'll invite you to come forward and ask our next question of the candidates. Catherine Kendall.
Perfect, thank you. It's an honor to be here. My question is that, first of all, I'm here to provide a voice for the community at VLA. For those that are not aware, VLA stands for the Veteran Lands Act, and it's a community that's also known as the Hood in Prince George, locating our most marginalized community members. And so I'd like to hear from you about how it is that you might take care of that particular neighborhood and the people that live there. And also taking note that this particular neighborhood is very dynamic. People are coming in and people are leaving on a daily basis. And I'd love to hear your comments about how you're going to work with that particular neighborhood.
All right. Thank you, Catherine. Mr. Hall, I'll let you start on this. And with that new microphone, you can probably do the same thing, Mr. Zurowski. You can get a little closer to the mic so everybody can hear you.
How's that? Thanks, Catherine, very much. If you, and you obviously did, you noticed in my opening remarks that I talked about the VLA as being a partner at the table, because that's what you are. You had a partnership growing incrementally over the last number of months, I would say, with the city with respect to things like equipment being provided, and I think that's a small part. But I think that without that voice that you bring, and Mr. Stewart at the table, we won't move forward with the issues down in the VLA. And I think that they are manageable. I think we have an opportunity to do something for you, but it's that partnership. We need to provide for example, what we are doing now, as I mentioned, is that piece around equipment to help do some lawns, to help do some beautification in the area. But beyond that, I think we need to start looking at that connection with VLA, council, and other agencies that can lend a hand and help out. So it's a work in progress, but I think we've started down the road. Thank you.
Zurowski?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the community group for taking it up themselves. I understand you've recently formed a society and you're developing Lee Stewart Park. That's progress. That really makes a contribution to civic pride down there. The Veterans Land Act area, as with Van Bow, are critical parts of the community. I think there's been some new tools put in the police's toolbox where they focus on ongoing inappropriate conduct in certain rental properties, and they're taking additional action. I like the idea that you're shored up by city staff with some of our equipment and additional human resource to manage beautification. And I think it is most productive, though, when the community is the driver and the city is the supporter. The Block Watch initiative that you've taken up is a good start. Community policing is working with you, and I know Linda Parker has played a role with that. So keep up the good work, and if I'm chosen as your mayor, I will support that. Even volunteer occasionally.
Catherine, did you have any follow-up as well?
I wanted to hear more about what you're going to do with the people. It's great to do some lawn mowing and make it all look pretty, but there are people that have a lot of issues there. And I wanted to share one example is that there were weeks that I worked there and I didn't feel like I moved a lot of families forward, but certainly a lot of people died. And so there are murders and there are lots of addictions and drug overdoses and a lot of girls working on the street down there. And I want to hear about how you're going to support them.
Mr. Zurowski, I'll get you to start on that.
Okay, well, there's crime is not acceptable in any neighborhood in the community, and enforcement is part of that. Some of the social strategy work that's been done in the city, I'm hopeful is useful. One of the things that we talked about in my term on council, we did a lot of work on this, was with the prostitution enforcement, to be most specifically aggressive in residential areas. That's bad enough in the business districts, but it's awful where people live. So targeted enforcement and those types of things are essential. The goal isn't to move that type of conduct, but to have services in the community to support people with addiction problems and that sort of thing, and working with other levels of government at those sorts of issues. They're ongoing, they're not going away. And the goal is not to move into another neighborhood, but manage them, make it better.
Mr. Hall?
Thanks, Catherine. And this is, you're absolutely right. It's more than just lawn mowing and beautifying that area. But I think there are some partners that we've left out that we really need to have a soul searching discussion with. That's the RCMP, the firefighters, and strengthening that social agency piece within the VLA. So I had an opportunity to do a ride along with the RCMP and the firefighters, and you can imagine that 70-75% of the calls we were in the VLA area. And there seems to be a lack of connection. So the RCMP attend or the firefighters attend for a particular reason, but there is no connection after that at times, it seems to me. And we need to create that connection between those frontline workers who are dealing with folks in the VLA, whether it be prostitution, whether it be a drug overdose, accidents, whoever might attend from our first responders. There needs to be that connection then from them into a social agency that there can be direct assistance. So that's what we need to create.
We're just going to go over a little bit on this one because I want to, Mr. Lee Stewart is here. Mr. Lee Stewart, would you mind coming up to the microphone because you're also in the VLA and you had a quick question for our candidates?
Absolutely. Good evening. My name is Lee Stewart. I'm director of Prince George VLA Enhancement Association. Ask some of the part of the question that I have. One of the things that we had last year was the landlord license fee. That would have addressed problems that we had with these landlords, and we do have them, and there are quite a few of them. that bounce people around and around. They get busted in one house and they move them over to another house. They're in Vancouver. They know what's going on because I've told them in a lot of cases. The police have told them in a lot of cases, and they just keep happening. Do we have any plan to revisit perhaps a license fee or some kind of strategy with a bylaw enforcement that is enforceable? I understand that was the problem. It wasn't seen to be enforceable, but we need more tools in the toolbox of the RCMP, and they will agree with that, and they have. So I'd like to know what your plan is for that particular problem.
All right, Mr. Stewart, thank you very much. Mr. Hall, I'll let you start on that one.
Thank you. Thanks, Lee. That did come to council, and I appreciate your comments that you made at council. They hit home. As you know, that particular bylaw or business license, as it was referred to, didn't end up seeing the light of day. There needs to be a new process. We need to do two things. We need to strengthen a bylaw so that the RCMP have another tool, if you will. But we also need to take a look at strengthening the ability for bylaw services to interact with the RCMP. So you know as well as anybody in this room what happens in the VLA goes through a process. So we may have the RCMP attend the event. If it's a situation where bylaw services should be involved, we need to give them the power and the strength to do something. It can be a fining process. It can be as severe as what we did at the Ranch Motel on Victoria Street. So we need to strengthen that. But at the time when that business license fee or that business license process came to council, I didn't feel that was the ticket that was going to do the job for the VLA or any other area in town for that matter. As mayor, I would see that we strengthen the bylaw and strengthen the opportunity for our bylaw enforcement officers to have some teeth in that bylaw as well as the RCMP.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hall. And Mr. Zurowski, I'll let you close out the comments on this.
Well, to Mr. Stewart's point, I thought the new bylaw as developed was on point and would have provided the tool required to for bylaws to do some of the additional enforcement and to deal with those landlords that conduct themselves poorly. So I was disappointed to see council reconsider its decision. I thought their first decision was a good one. The reconsideration, in my view, was a mistake, but I would be prepared to relook that.
All right, we'll come to our next question of this half, and then we'll take a break. And I mentioned earlier, acknowledging the traditional territory of the Lheidli T'enneh First Nation, where we are tonight. And there's been a number of partnerships between Prince George and the Lheidli T'enneh, including recognition of the Lheidli T'enneh as the first host, the first host First Nation of the Canada Winter Games coming up next year. I'll invite to the microphone now Jason Morgan. He's Executive Director of the Lheidli T'enneh First Nation in Prince George. And Jason has our next community question. Jason.
Congratulations to you both for accepting the mayoral candidacy position. One of the things I do want to say is that July 16, 2002, both governments, the City of Prince George and Lheidli T'enneh, signed a protocol. And one of the things that I do want to ask is, what commitments under your leadership would you make sure to make sure that there's a meaningful and respectful working relationship between both governments? And the second part of the question, if I could ask, is as the City of Prince George moves toward the 100th centennial celebrations, the journey of Lheidli and the journey of the City of Prince George is a shared history. On one hand, it will be a big celebration for this great city. And yet on the other hand, it would be looking at the memory of an entire community being relocated. How do you envision a reconcilable approach that acknowledges the history as we move ahead for the future?
Mrs. Zurowski, I'll let you start on that.
Well, Jason, we're delighted to meet this evening on the Lheidli T'enneh traditional territories. And in my view, we're all home. You're certainly home too. This is your community, as it is mine, and it's your community and my community's 100th anniversary. And my platform is let's get Prince George growing. You're a very big part of that, as are the Lheidli T'enneh people. Your families are growing faster than non-Aboriginal communities, and that's a good thing. We aspire to have more residents living here. We want to celebrate your history and Prince George's history, which is in large way associated with the Grand Pacific Railway and the BC Board of Trade. There's lots of connectors there. So I really hope that Aboriginal people play a very large role in the future of Prince George. It must if we're to thrive. And the protocol that was signed, was it 2002? You were very close to a treaty at that point in time, and I would love that to be part of this next 4 years. I don't, as mayor, I wouldn't control that, but I'd certainly advocate for that and play any role I could in advancing that. So thank you for coming out with your question. Appreciate that. And we're your home, as are we. Prince George is as much your home as mine.
Mr. Hall, your thoughts on the commitment?
Yeah, thanks,
that,
Jason.
Mayor, you'll make in that
Yeah,
relationship?
thank you very much. Two things, Jason, if I'm elected mayor. That 2002 protocol agreement needs to be strengthened. There's no question in my mind it needs to be strengthened. And we have an issue. We have an issue that's long been discussed, and you mentioned it, around the relocation of your community. I think we need to take a look at those particular issues in Fort George Park, the cemetery issue. We need to get on that. And that would be one of the first orders of business that I would do, and the new council. You are part of our community. You are our community. We have some partnerships with you now, but I think that could be expanded upon. Great opportunity for the Lheidli T'enneh to participate in the 2015 Canada Winter Games. That was a great partnership. We've got another great partnership around the 100th celebration that's going to take place next year here in Prince George. So I think it's just building on those, but it is that connection. It's the participation of City Council along with your band council that we're going to resolve some of these issues. Thanks.
And I'll just, the second part of your question, Jason, I'll just reiterate that for the candidates, is you asked about, there's a certain bifurcation in the nature of this celebration in the next 100 years. It's the 100th anniversary, of course, of the city, but then there's also recognizing and perhaps reconciling the fact that it is the dislocation of a First Nation. So as mayor, what do you think you can do? What do you want to do to address that, the nature of that celebration? And Mr. Hall, you start.
Yeah, thanks. Well, that's what I was talking about in the second part, where we need to recognize that there are those issues and we need to get moving on those. They've been discussed for many years. Jason and I have had an opportunity to have a quick conversation about them and other band counselors, but they need to be moved now to a position of true discussion and how we can resolve the issues. So less talk, and we need to get on with more action when it comes to that.
I'll use a word that often isn't popular, and I'm not talking about cultural integration, but certainly economic integration, where Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal community participate in the same economic climate. Our economy is much bigger than the city of Prince George, and I look forward to a larger level of participation in real economic opportunities, employment and jobs within this community and region by the Aboriginal community. So I'd like to get those barriers down, and Lynn made a good point. The City Council working closer with the Lheidli T'enneh Council as to what we can do together. Together we're stronger than divided, no question.
All right. Thank you, Jason. All right, so with that, we're going to wrap up this first half of the evening. We're going to take about a 10-minute break, and by 10, I mean 15. And so what that means basically is that take a moment if you need to refresh yourself, if you need to chat with your neighbors for a moment. The other important thing we'd like you to do is, Andrew, if you could stand up with that blue bucket. Andrew's going to make the rounds. Jordan, also, if I could press you into service here, and you can pass along your sheets to Jordan. She's just standing up there, and Sham just coming back towards the front. So if you've got some questions, some things that you haven't heard addressed yet that you'd like us to address before the end of the evening, we will do that. So if you don't have a sheet of paper and a pen, there are some in the back by the Aquaspace sign. So you've got about 10, 15 minutes to get some thoughts on paper. Hand them to Andrew or Jordan or Sham, and we'll select some of those to ask in the second half of our program tonight. So for you folks in the Skylab upstairs, for you folks here in the Keith Gordon room, give yourselves about 10 minutes, come back, and we'll carry on the discussion. So you'll have an opportunity to ask a question as well. Thank you. You're listening to the 2014 mayoral debate on CBC Radio One Daybreak, 91.5 FM in Prince George. That was great. I realized, I got up here and, I did my introduction and we introduced the candidates, of course, but, I didn't really get a chance to say hello to you properly. So if we could just take a moment now, I'll say my name, and if you could respond with your name, then, we'll all get to know each other. So good evening. I'm Russell.
Michelle.
How you doing, Russell?
Much better now. All right, well, thank you for that. I'm not sure we're any further ahead, but at least we tried. First of all, I want to, we talked about the fact that many of you are CBC listeners, and from what I understand from the last set of ratings they've done in Prince George, 30% of the radios that are on in the morning are listening to CBC Radio One, and that makes us the #1 radio station in Prince George. So thank you. I wish I could say I had something to do with it, but I only got here in July. But we're trying our best to keep those numbers up. And certainly this is quite heartening to see so many people here tonight responding to hearing the announcement on the radio and elsewhere through our other media colleagues. So thank you to them as well for helping publicize this event tonight. And we have, I think, according to the count from Andrew, there's about a couple of hundred people here in the room. There's 100 people upstairs in the Skylab, 125, and there's a few dozen who are watching our videos. Yeah, there's a few dozen watching our live streaming here tonight. So I guess you folks must be interested in civic elections, and we're all going to go out and vote, right? The next scheduled mayoral debate is happening on November 6th, and it's a partnership between the library. No, that's the November 12th one. Okay, so it's the Prince George Citizen and CKPG and they're going to be putting together the next mayoral debate on November 6th. So and the Chamber of Commerce, and so they're all getting together for that next debate on November 6th. So put that in your calendars. And on November 12th, back here at the library, there will be another opportunity, shall we say, to meet the candidates. It's part of an event called Candidating. So you'll have an opportunity to speed date Lynn or Don. I'm assuming, and the is the counselors? Okay, well, clearly I don't know what I'm doing. It's the counselors, so you'll get a chance to speed date counselors. Excellent. So that's happening, that's a thing, and that's on November 12th at the library. What time, Andrea?
We're still ironing out those details. I would just like to assure you that it's platonic.
Okay, apparently it is. Did I hear an awe? It is a platonic event. So we're going to get some of your questions now in this next half, and well, we'll start with one of them actually, and I'm going to bring up someone from the UNBC newspaper, Over the Edge. Are they there? Do they want to come up and ask their question? Yeah, come on up. And while you're doing that, I'll also just, in the interest of saving a bit of time, I've also got a question ready from Terry Feduk. Terry, Fedorku? Feduk, don't throw me off. I'm thrown off enough. So Terry, if you're in the room, if you could make your way over here somewhere, that'd be great. And that's it for now. All right, so if you would introduce yourself, please, and your question for both candidates.
Hey, I'm Sue-In. I work as a publisher for Over the Edge newspaper. And my question for the candidates is, as students, we go out to downtown Prince George at nighttime often, and we notice that downtown PG is usually dead when people should be outside talking and walking around. And Okay.
We'll have to get you to start again.
Yeah, can you just restart your question for us so we can?
Just the question part?
Yeah,
Okay.
so we can get it on the radio.
That's good. My question is that as students, we go out to downtown PG at night often, and we realize that our Prince George downtown is quite dead, and small businesses, privately owned small businesses die, and they don't really have a lot of support, and it's kind of a community where it's considered dangerous to go out at night without having a bunch of people around you. So what are your plans in terms of downtown revitalization, and do you guys have any specific plans that you've thought of to make the students' life safer and people's lives safer in downtown PG?
All right, thank you. Mr. Zurowski, if you want to start us off on that?
Well, from a starting point, thank you for supporting downtown businesses and causing them to be just a little busier in the evening. And I know UNDC students are quite social, and they enjoy the downtown recreational amenities. And I'm supposed to be closer to the mic as well. One of the things that this is a critical part of, Prince George is a very large downtown. It's got a large footprint compared to most municipalities our size. That's another reason it's critical that we get Prince George growing. If we can grow our population by another 25%, that adds to the critical mass downtown and will help downtown businesses thrive and the recreational opportunities do better down there. But the connection between UNBC and college students in our downtown is critical. I'm very hopeful we can entice one or both of the two post-secondary education facilities to take up student residencies downtown. That would be a critical major step forward.
Mr. Hall.
Thanks very much, Russell. How's that? Is that close enough,
That's
Will? That's
great.
good. Thank you. Thanks for the question. I guess 4 things. One is that we as a council, we need to start to take a look at clearly defined entertainment district downtown. They do that in other cities where they in fact take the downtown and create a district where they want to see restaurants, pubs, entertainment for everyone in the community, and they confine it to a specific area. So it's like a one-stop shop, and it thrives in many municipalities. I think the other thing is when you talk about downtown revitalization, and you know, Don, I've been waiting for that question early in the campaign, but here it is, because it is always a topic of conversation, and I think we're edging closer and closer. In order to revitalize the downtown, we need people in the downtown. We need people living there, and we're getting closer to that. We're seeing more residential development bordering Victoria Street, but we need that residential development to start to move further in towards the Queensway area. We are seeing it. I'm working with a couple of groups that are looking at providing various services, housing services in the downtown area. That's important. You get people downtown, it'll thrive. I think the other thing is that taking a look at the RCMP, downtown policing, that's another piece of the puzzle. And of course, when you talk about moving residents downtown from UNBC, Don, we have a couple buildings downtown. We have the opportunity for that, to house UNBC students. It just needs a little bit of foresight, a little bit of work, and I think there's an opportunity there. The busing piece is big. How do we continue to supply and provide more busing opportunities for students at UNBC? But not only UNBC, let's not forget about CNC as well. Excuse me, as well. There's residences there, and those students need to get downtown. So I think we need to look at the busing piece as well. Thank you.
I'm going to ask just a follow-up on that for a moment, because we've certainly heard both of you gentlemen be quite eloquent on your various positions here tonight. But on this issue of downtown revitalization, I want to ask you to critique your opposition in this race. Don, is there anything that you've heard from Lynn Hall's campaign that you think is a flaw, is not the right way to go to revitalize the downtown of Prince George, or something where you disagree with Lynn on?
Well, there's many things I disagree with Lynn on, but
I thought maybe we'd hear one too.
Yeah, I'm not one of his validators, incidentally, the gentleman, but I would, in speaking to the downtown opportunity, I would like to associate myself with a permissive tax exemption that we put in place when I was on city council that entices the private sector to invest in downtown. I like the idea of private sector making the investment as opposed to state. We've got some new major projects here, and it's great to have the new Wittig facility under construction and soon operating. That's a major new asset downtown Prince George, will increase employment there.
How do you incentivize private interest to get involved in the downtown and fill in some of those empty spaces?
We have a tool that we put in place, which was it's called a permissive tax exemption. It's where you get a tax holiday on your improvements for up to 10 years, which is a fairly major issue. If residentially, we think our tax rate is high, small business and the business community pay a higher tax rate. So that's a major cost item on their on a company's income statement. So it's there. There has been some uptake on that. As Lynn had mentioned, we've made some progress in housing downtown with the attachment to the Commonwealth facility down there, the medical center there. There's been some progress. It's slow, but I believe it may be gaining speed.
Right.
So that permissive tax exemption is a real tool, and we need to promote it more. And when the billboards on the side of the highway stating Prince George is open for business and my phone number on it, I will introduce that permissive tax exemption vigorously and all of the time.
Lynn Hall, anything that you
Well,
found lacking in Mr. Zurowski's proposals?
As Don said about me, I'm not as validated. Great guy. We're going to go out for dinner on November 12th when everybody else is dating.
We'll date each other then.
No, that's what we're going to do.
Who's buying?
So, Don, you're retired, I'll buy. And you're older than I am, so Look, permissive tax exemption we have right now for our social agencies and our nonprofit organizations. Another piece of the puzzle that we could talk about, but very important to nonprofits. Don talked about tax exemptions. We have those in place. We have to push them. We have to be aggressive. Council needs to work with developers. And I know somebody's going to say, well, you know what? We've got a development department that should be doing that work. I understand that, and I agree with that. But council needs to push the envelope. Mayor and council need to push it. You talk about the Wittig building. There is an opportunity there that is a gem, and we need to pursue that. So UNBC may go in there a couple floors, but there's an opportunity for students with a little bit of work to have potential housing in there as well. There's 6 floors there, 6 floors of opportunity. There's other places downtown that we just need to incentivize developers to take a look at and get students downtown. So if the residences are full at CNC or UNBC, provide them with an opportunity in our downtown core. Provide them with safety, provide them with busing. That will start the migration, and that will start the development of downtown. For years and years and years, we talked about revitalization of downtown, and it will happen when we get people to move downtown, but we have to provide that. And that's where mayor and council can come into this. So Don talks about his billboard, Russell, on the outside of town.
Yeah.
It will have the mayor's phone number on it, but it will just have a different name above it.
Our news reporter, Will Fundal, is, in addition to running sound, taking notes for his own news report. So, Will, just fact check Lynn Hall on age. And
Okay, I am older than Don.
All right, our first flip-flop of the campaign. All right, we're gonna move on.
Just trying to scam him for a little bit of dinner, that's all. That's all I was.
Let's move on to our next guest question. We're gonna move on to our next guest questioner here tonight. And of course, we're here in the Prince George Public Library. It's a place that is near and dear to so many of us in the city. And it's a highly used facility, of course. And the next question we have is from Don Stevens from Friends of the Library. Don, if you would, is Don here? Yes, Don, hi. If you would just come up to the mic, and Andrew will get that in place for you, and we'll get your question. There you go.
I'm actually representing the board of the public library tonight, and I'd like to know, what is your own experience with the public library, and what is your vision for the library in Prince George's future in terms of infrastructure, programs, and how it fits into the community?
All right, first of all, Mr. Zurowski, do you want to start us off on your experience with the library?
Well, my experience with the library is, of course, I've been a user for a very long time, as has my family. I believe from a monetary point of view, it's the most expensive non-city operation that the citizens support, but for good reason. It's heavily utilized and literacy is important. From a facility perspective, this is a great facility. It was built 30 years ago. As I mentioned on the onset, the entrance to the library is not a point of pride of mine or anyone in the rooms, I would suggest. But when it comes to infrastructure decisions, I will not make a one-off infrastructure decision. It's important, and in my view, it's a need rather than a want, but that decision needs to be made on balance with our other infrastructure requirements. But I can say, I wouldn't be interested in building another very large municipal recreational facility until we get to the library, the library entrance. And I'll also thank you for your volunteer activities on the Prince George Library Board. It's a lot of work. It's a big responsibility, and we appreciate your leadership and volunteerism. Thank you.
Lynn. Thanks, Russell. So on 3 points, my experience with the library is much like Dawn's, personal and as well with my family, but it perhaps goes a little bit further, knowing the importance of the library and the connection it has to School District 57 and the literacy programs that cohabitate between those two organizations are important. And let's not forget the Raise the Reader program that's conducted every year and raises money for literacy programs in Prince George. You talk about the infrastructure. Let me back up just a moment. So we have the main branch and we have the satellite branch, and I think that as we move along, that's important to maintain. The infrastructure piece, as you know, we had a presentation and put a $2.5 million project for the front entrance on the funded capital list. We're going to get a report come to council within the next 3 weeks or so, and we will be discussing and deliberating the new proposal, which is in excess of the $2.5 million. And I think that it, as has been said, needs to be weighed out with other opportunities that are in the community or other needs in the community. But it is an eyesore. And this building, as with many of our other buildings, have a vigorous discussion at council regarding that piece of work that needs to be done here. Thank you.
I just wonder for both of you, as elected mayor, how quickly do you think that timeline would happen to do some of those improvements or to change to get that funding moving along and that kind of thing? What would you say is a reasonable timeline for that?
Well, I like to get things done, but I'm not careless when it comes to looking at capital projects on balance. It needs to be weighed with other projects. And it would be nice to say this next year, but I'm not prepared to make that commitment without looking at things on balance.
Lynn?
Yeah, as I said, we've got a number of infrastructure needs, and we're going to be getting a report from administration in the next week or 10 days, specifically around buildings and what our facilities look like. And I think that we need to take a look at that as a global view of those pieces that we need to do something with. Time-wise, Robert, I don't know. It's really difficult to say. We are going to be dealing with the specific question around the front entrance of the library within budget deliberations this fall. And it will depend on what council decides from there. But I, like Dawn, I like to move forward. If something lands on the desk, let's get on with it and move forward on to the next project.
Okay. We're going to turn the microphone over to one of our audience members who's come here tonight, Terry Faduck. Terry? And you've got a question, I believe, that I suppose in some respects is kind of a personal question, so to speak, about their professional lives. So go ahead.
Hi there. I just sort of want to take a step back because I think we're all coming to the end of this current council where a lot of promises were made at the last election. A lot of us are still waiting to see some of that happen. So both of you serve council. I'd like to hear from you what your personal, what you're most proud of, what your personal, what you brought to the forefront. Not what council brought, but you personally. What did you bring to Prince George?
Mr. Hall, I'll start with you as your in-council president.
Yeah, thanks very much. I guess for me, it's when and I talked earlier about roads and the money that we put into the roads. I think that was a big piece. When I first got on council, it's an enormous job. We deal with everything from nuts to bolts, and it is nonstop. And the biggest piece that we heard, or I heard, was what in fact we can do with roads. So I think if I take a look at the 3 years, it's my participation in looking at finding more money for our road rehabilitation programs, and I think that really stands out. Thank you.
Don, during your time on council?
3 quick infomercials and things that I'm proud of. One of the things that I was the driver behind was when council decided we were rebuilding or building a new Cameron Street Bridge. There was a cost of over $20 million associated with that. I pushed extremely hard to look at using the existing pylons and pillars that were in the water. We did some engineer testing and took a bit of a chance, but we did it for 12 million instead of 20 or 22, which got a lot more value to the taxpayer, the same amenity for over $8 million less money. That was a major accomplishment. The other 2 things that I take pride in, and we've got a lot more of this to do because the seniors' needs from a housing perspective is growing exponentially, and we're not in front of it. We're partway there. Was breaking the land use. The current properties where the chateau is located was zoned for regional shopping center. And the one thing you learn on council, you're not there very long before you realize that you can't tell development where it will go. You can only tell them where it will not go. And they wanted to locate their amenity on its current location at 5th and Tabor. And it was zoned regional shopping center. It was an OCP amendment requirement bylaw and required a bylaw amendment. We did both in a timely way, and today we have the chateau in Prince George. Not real dissimilar to what was required to get the gateway there. And I was a big part of advocating for those amenities. And we need to do that many more times in Prince George in the next few years to meet the future needs of our changing demographic.
Thank you, Don. And thank you, Terry, for your question. We're going to move on to the last 2 of our invited questionnaires this evening. And the next subject that we're going to get into is subject of youth. We're going to hear from a couple of important demographics around this. And we've got a member from the Council of Seniors in just a moment. But first, for someone who's going to ask our youth question tonight, I want to welcome Jessica Chen. And Jessica, if you could come to the mic, we'll get it in place for you. Introduce yourself and ask the candidates your question.
Hi, I'm Jessica Chen, and I'm in my final year at Adventures Park here in Prince George. I am a member of the Youth Advisory Board at Prince George Public Library, which consists of youth from all over Prince George who come together to provide youth perspectives to the library, as well as other projects around the city. So my question for you is, what does youth consultation mean to you? Sometimes I feel like getting youth feedback is just a box that gets ticked. And I'm wondering what you will do to account for youth voices in decisions that involve us, such as our education or our environment that we live in.
All right. Don, start things off there.
Well, thank you, Jessica, and thank you for being engaged. One of the things that I think is critical and an important part of my growth strategy or the community's growth strategy is to make certain that we have meaningful consultation engagement with youth. And that means to me, and I look forward to hearing more from you about it. You're the expert. I'm but a willing observer and participant. I really think we have to meet youth where youth are. So where do you want to meet with us and how do you want to be engaged? Because it's critical to entice individuals just like you and hopefully you to stay in this community. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Jessica. You talked about your student work here at the library, but also in school. The School District 57 has a district student advisory council, and my years on the school board, it was a thriving group that brought a number of innovative educational ideas to the school board. So I see that transitioning from the district student advisory council to city council. That's a great connection. It's an advisory board made up of students from all over the district, as you know. But it's a strong connection, and that's what I've been talking about, is reaching out and reconnecting to the community, creating partnerships with our stakeholders. So I see that as part of it. The other piece is the more we can strengthen that relationship, not only with council and students or the youth of the community, but also we have services within City Hall that need to be connected as well. So it's not just council. I think it flows down to our service providers within City Hall, our staff. That's a big leap, and I think it needs to happen. I think that was really where the strong connection would be in those two areas.
In all due respect, those questions did sound a lot like engagement. It sounded a lot like consultation. But I'm sure, as Jessica and any other young person in the room would probably attest to, a lot of their engagement happens online. It happens through social media. And then Don, so how does the city reach out through social media to get Jessica involved and other people like her?
Well, let's be honest about it. We haven't done a good job of that in the first while of this term. We are now trying to recreate a website that is going to be beneficial to the entire community, and it's not going to be so difficult to navigate. And beyond that, I think with our communications department, we in fact need to have them setting up, and now I may really show my age, but Twitter, Facebook, those types of social media applications that you can access and get direct involvement with council and direct involvement with the mayor. Don made a point about meeting you on your turf, and that's part of your turf. Some of us don't use it as much as others, but I think as a city, it's important. You take a look at other municipalities. Let's go to Calgary, for example. That's a huge part of what mayor and council do in Calgary. They are directly connected to the community through social media. And if we don't get caught up, you're the age demographic that we're going to lose, and we need to catch up.
So Don, I'll let you jump in. Are you going to Snapchat your Pinterest, or are you rotary dial coming on?
Well, I want to do a bit of a disclosure. Maybe Lynn and I should come clean, just in case you were suspicious. We are both over 39, and I suspect that Lynn, along with me, would, in managing his social media, gets the assistance of his lovely daughters, as I do as well. Not his daughters, mine. But we have
only guaranteed of one vote, and I thought my family was going to vote.
Take no one for granted. But to that point, the social media point, and we're running to politically lead this community from a local government perspective, and we need to get to you on how you want to communicate with us. And the city's website update is a good initiative. It's a good start. But remember our personal advice for our personal contact information as well. Facebook, Twitter, and emails. Don't be afraid to let position us. I certainly appreciate it. It's critical. Thank you.
When in doubt, facts. All right. We're going to move on to our last invited questioner this evening. And so this is, on some respects, at the other end of the spectrum here. We're going to discuss seniors now, and also an important part of our community, the seniors population, of course. And the person who's going to ask our question to our candidates is Ginny Parson, and she's Vice President of the Prince George Council of Seniors. Ginny, your question, please, for the candidates.
Yes, thanks for asking me, and both of you do know who I am. I've been on this podium for a long time on housing for seniors. There is housing for the lower class and the higher class, and the middle class is out in my field. And I've been at it for 10 years. I finally got one up on the heart. And I'd like to see more housing for seniors out of the Bull area. They do not want to leave where they live, their neighbors, within their area. They would like to stay in contact. I would like to hear what you both have to say. Thank you.
Don, yeah, you start us off.
Well, you're absolutely right. more housing needs for seniors. We've certainly got them. One of the things I look forward to doing is working with the Prince George Home Builders Association. There's a whole lot of new condo construction and townhome construction that is multi-level, and that doesn't meet the needs of seniors. It just doesn't work. And there are those that are mobility challenged as well, not just seniors that have housing needs that aren't being met. So I look forward to working with them. And I'm not certain if I want to suggest there should be Crown intervention, because many of these people have been independent all their lives and they're not looking to be subsidized necessarily. They just need housing options, smaller footprint homes on one level in a mix of locations. So maybe it has to be part of subdivision design standards where a percentage of that needs to be a different type of housing. So that'll be part of the discussion. I look forward to having that discussion with you and development services in the building community moving forward, because it's great when some of these things can be taken up by the private sector. I know the initiative on the Heart is great and it's really appreciated by many.
Yeah, thanks very much. Thanks, Jenny. As you know, there's a couple of pieces in the Heart that are ripe for development. Had a conversation with a few folks there. There's an opportunity to do a 3-phase housing project up there, which means that those folks who want to move into that mid-range development that you talked about would have the opportunity to move in at a phase 1. As they get older and require more needs, it can be progressed through phase 2 and 3. So they don't have to leave the area, and I think that's important. So there's great opportunity up there in those 2 pieces, and I hope it comes to fruition. It's going to take work by council, and I think council, mayor and council need to connect and partner and have Prince George seniors organizations come to the table with council to have that discussion. Let's not forget about BC Housing. They provided great housing in this community, and I think they're another key player in all of this. And there's no doubt whatsoever that the private sector funding needs to be there. And we have to make it, as we talked about earlier, we have to incentivize this kind of thing. We have to make sure that the private developer understands that city, council, mayor are in favor of these kinds of development, and we'll do what we can do to make them happen. So there's a lot of good things that are going to happen up there. Thank you.
All right, we're making pretty good time here this evening. Does anybody mind if we do a couple more questions? I'll take that as a yes. I've got the microphone, so I guess I can do whatever I want from here on out. We do have one more question from the audience I think that we can squeeze in. And Jan Manning, are you still here? Okay, Jan, I'll get you to come up over here. And while you're doing that, and we'll get you in place to ask your question, there is something on my mind, because we've covered it on Daybreak a little bit with different people coming on to have this discussion. And we've certainly heard from many listeners who have a strong opinion on both sides. And that's the subject of, Prince George getting its own performing arts center. Now, there's some people who think that for a city of its size, it's high time that Prince George had a performing arts center. And then there are those who feel that there are many other projects more worthy of the city's time and money. So I just want to throw this open to both candidates. And Lynn, I'll start with you.
Sure.
Where do you stand on Prince George getting a performing arts center, and what would you do to make it a reality during your first term as mayor?
Well, in 2011, I think all of the candidates certainly supported the Performing Arts Center. I was one of them. And I hate to use this word, but there's no money. We have talked for a very long time about what it's going to take to have a performing arts center in Prince George, and what it's going to take is a level of financial commitment by 3 levels of government. That's what it will take. We had a report come to us presented by the city manager suggesting that we were probably looking at anywhere from 5 to 8 years before we would see any kind of opportunity to do that partnership. So in the meantime, the Performing Arts Center Board are working with our administration, and that's where it stands right now. Will it happen within the next 3 years? At this point, it doesn't look like it will. As I said, we're looking for that long-term partnership, and we've been told that it's 5 to 8 years off, so it could be a while yet.
Well, just let me ask the follow-up. So in the course of your 4 years as mayor, what would you do to either strengthen that relationship or get that partnership built a little more substantially?
Well, I think two things, Russell. I think it's the continual work between our administration and also with the Performing Arts Center board. Because we have found out that the longer you take to put a project together, the more costly it's going to be. And Performing Arts Center aside, even if we're looking at doing the Four Seasons pool, CN Center, if you wait and wait, there is more cost involved. So that's one piece of it. That's an administration to board work that needs to continue. And again, I can't stress too strongly that we need to look at that funding piece. So if we're not going to get the federal or provincial government to become a partner in this, it's a really tough go for us. We just can't do it on our own.
Mr. Hall, Mr. Zurowski, on the subject of Performing Arts Center, where do you stand and how much of a priority would it be during your term?
Well, I'm of a different view, and let me start off by saying I'm a friend of the arts. We were at Theatre Northwest the other night. It was great. We go to Studio 2880 for different events. We are a friend of the arts. We have some great amenities here. They are not meeting community expectation, but let me assure you, the Performing Arts Center, with me as mayor, I would not be a supporter of it being built first term. It's not just about the capital cost to build a Performing Arts Center. That's but one piece. It's the ongoing operating expenses, which carry on for a very long period of time. I would liken it to our good friends at Shaw Cable. You can buy a new PVR, that costs you a few $100s, but the monthly alimony payment for the ongoing service, the novelty of that gets old after a while. So I believe that we should build a Performing Arts Center in my second term as mayor, when we're much closer to 100,000 people and we're sharing the cost of these great civic amenities with more people, and we have our current amenities in better repair. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And just a note to our friends at Shaw, if they're watching online tonight,
Yeah, they are.
we do thank you for your valuable service in the community and the great value that you provide each and every month. All right, we have one more question from our audience here tonight. Jan Manning? Manning, yes, Jan, ask your question.
Thanks very much. Good evening to both of you. I have a question that may be on the minds of many people here, considering what we've seen in the news, etc. We've had a large core review done within the city, and I'm wondering, as many of ours, I think, are, should you become mayor, either one of you, do you plan to have an upper management performance review? And could you please explain your answer? Thanks.
All right. Lynn, we'll start with you on this one.
Let me answer a question that you didn't ask, Jan. No to a core review. And I can expand on that at a later date. When you talk about review, let me just get some clarification. You're suggesting or asking that we take a look at our manager's performance as we would with any other staff member?
Yes, actually,
Yeah.
I wasn't suggesting another core review. I think we've done that. Yes, upper management.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Yeah, well, that in fact takes place on an ongoing basis. So as you may know, council has one employee, and that's the city manager. We certainly have an opportunity to give the city manager direction on what to do. The city manager will take a look at our senior administration, is what I call them, those folks that operate our departments. And the city manager's role is to take a look at performance, not only from an operational side, but human resource side. So that goes on consistently and should go on consistently, not only at City Hall, but quite frankly, goes on in private sector as well.
And Don?
Well, from a core review perspective, no additional core review. One of the things I can hardly wait to spend some money on when I, along with the new 8 council members, are elected, is to have a strategic planning session with them to determine what we agree on, so we can direct administration to put together a work plan to execute the priorities of the newly elected councillors and mayor. It's important to getting off on the right foot and working as a team, not necessarily of all one mind, of 8 different minds, but determining what we agree on and moving forward with that. As far as performance evaluation of our staff, there is 800 good people that work for the city of Prince George, and most of them do a very good job. There are others that don't, but doing performance evaluations are critical. And I'm one of the individuals that believe that they're, it's performance-based, it's not activity-based, so it's about outcomes. We need to look for very good outcomes out of our people. It's a big part of civic pride. So yes, there would be a performance evaluation. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Jen. And I want to follow up on Jan's question, because there's something that was interesting that, certainly we've covered on Daybreak, and I know other media have talked about this as well. And I'm wondering how much of you sense a certain disconnect between what's happening in the council and city staff, because most recently we heard about, I think it was like 11 staffers who were let go and council didn't know, and some of them found out through the media. On the other side of that, though, city council paid a lot of money to an American consultant to determine the state of the snow equipment and the fleet that the city has to take on this upcoming winter. So some might ask, why did the city spend that money? Why not? Wasn't the in-house information good enough to determine whether or not the machines worked or didn't work? What do you think you need to work on between city staff and council in the upcoming 4 years? Don, if you're elected, you're coming into the job more or less from outside of the present.
Yes.
What do you think needs to be done differently?
Well, there's a number of things that I think are critical in the community right now, from a council, senior administration, and our 800 staff. We need to improve the relationship between staff and senior administration, and staff, senior administration, and city council. That's a big part of advancing civic pride. The ongoing conflict and tension is not working. And I think I've got an opinion as to why a lot of that exists. It's because there's not a vision and there's not a cohesiveness around council. So commonly people don't, leadership isn't about, here, follow me, I'm going nowhere. It's follow me and work with me because I know where I'm going. And that's the type of direction that our 800 employees and senior staff need to get from city council. The council needs to work together, and I look forward to working with council in the future. Thank you.
And Lynn.
Yeah, thanks, Russell. I probably more than Dawn, I look forward to working with council in the future. Let's go back to your question around the recent 11 layoffs. I heard at the soccer field. That doesn't fly with me. Council needs to know. Council needs to know when these things occur. And for me to learn something at the soccer field while I'm watching the UNBC Timberwolves women's soccer team play, and somebody comes up to me and says, guess what you guys did again? No idea. And then I get a call from the media. How do you respond to that? So that is a real concern of mine. Don talks about leadership. What I have stressed since I announced on June 25th is a reconnection to the community and leadership. Leadership that I brought and can bring the experience from my years on the school district. That's what council needs. Don's absolutely right when he talks about we don't have to be of like mind. I don't think anybody in this room wants 8 people that think alike. That's what this democratic process is about. You pick who you think can do the job at the table. And there are going to be differences. But at the end of the day, you need to be rowing in the same direction. You need to have the same commitment to the community. There needs to be a connection. There needs to be conversation. There needs to be engagement by council with the mayor, with the city manager, with administration. You need to know what's going on. There's an opportunity for the mayor to make that happen. And that's what I bring to the table. That's what we need to have happen. If there isn't that connection, it isn't going to work. Thank you.
All right. So that's the end of our questions. So I'm going to give each of the candidates a minute to sum up their thoughts on this evening. and obviously we'll petition for your support. Gentleman Jordan is standing by. She'll give you a 20-second warning when your time is coming to a close, but I'll give you each a minute to sum up the evening, and Mr. Zurowski, you're first.
Okay, well, I want to speak about let's get Prince George growing, and I'm here on a recruitment mission. Getting Prince George growing is not a function simply of City Hall. If that was taken up by City Hall, none of us have paid enough taxes yet. It's about individual participation, almost like guerrilla marketing. City Hall's role is to deal with community annoyances. Let's do a good job of services you pay for, like snow removal and road rehabilitation and cutting lawn in parks. That part of that City Hall's role, but we've all got a role in attracting friends and neighbors and work colleagues. We all have a role to play in the recruitment of new individuals to this community to get it growing. We are well positioned to do that. I look forward to working with our 800 civic employees, improving civic pride in getting growing. The opportunity is now. There's hot labor markets in northeastern, northwestern British Columbia, northern Alberta, and we need to extend an invitation and capitalize on that for the benefit of all of us. And thank you.
Thanks, Russell. Well, I talked quite a bit since June 25th about the issues that are going to be before council in the next term. No question, infrastructure will be a hot topic. Buildings, our commitment to what we can do with our infrastructure. I've talked a lot about leadership. I've talked a lot about reconnecting to the community, reconnecting to our staff, reconnecting to those stakeholders that make our community. And I think from my perspective, I have the ability to do that. I'm able to provide that leadership. I'm able to connect to the community. And I think that when we take a look at what the community wants, I think it's a opportunity to get closer to council, to understand what council is doing, and for council to hear their voice. And that's why I'm proposing that we move out into the community on a quarterly basis, conduct council meetings in our neighborhoods like Blackbird, like the Heart, the Bowl, College Heights. That's the opportunity that we need to jump on. Thank you.
So we'll wrap things up here. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for our candidates. I'm just going to close out with just a quick comment, if I might. There's an old cliche about voting that says, you know, if you don't vote, you can't complain. Well, I've always thought if you pay taxes, you have every right to complain, whether or not you voted. But I think what's more significant about not voting or voting is that the fewer number of people that turn out on an election day, no matter if it's municipal, provincial, federal, the fewer people that turn out, the more it sends a message to politicians that we don't care. Do what you want. We don't care. The people who are motivated to show up, and I don't probably need to convince anyone in this building tonight, there are more than 300 of you that came out tonight interested in the outcome of this next election. Some of you have made up your minds tonight. Some of you are still not sure. Some of you will have to give it some more thought. And some of you will go out of this room tonight and tell your friends about great points that either Lynn or Don made. You'll campaign perhaps on behalf of one of them. But the point is that here tonight, we have an opportunity to engage and remind ourselves why this sort of thing is important. And now it behooves us to go out and tell our friends, tell our neighbors to get involved. Our colleagues at the Prince George Citizen are going to be working over the next few weeks to try and get the voter turnout in Prince George up over 50% from under 30. So take the opportunity to tell someone about this event tonight. Take the opportunity to go to the next mayoral debate on November 6th and take another friend who isn't here tonight. Encourage one of them to go dating with the councilors. But whatever you do, take this opportunity because not everyone gets an opportunity to vote, as we've seen so much and so often on our screens on national and international news. On behalf of CBC Radio, it's been our pleasure to partner with the library to be here tonight and to take part in this most democratic of processes. Our thanks to our fellow members of the media for being here tonight. My personal thanks to my colleagues at CBC Radio for pulling this whole thing together. And my thank you to you. Thank you for coming. And we'll see you on the radio tomorrow morning between 6 and 8:30.